Will Wade, Dwayne Wade, or Will Smith, whoever our head coach is next year, what are our early expectations for how the roster might shape up?
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Wednesday show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. Happy Wednesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, another day has now ticked by, still waiting for the announcement, hopefully, of our newest head coach, and we're all praying that it will be Will Wade. The fan base is in. We're in. I'm sure the boosters are in. Well, we know the boosters are in. Everyone is waiting for Will Wade to take the helm of NC State basketball. Still waiting for that 3:15 tip-off on Thursday. Clemson will play against McNeese in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Don't y'all dare pick McNeese. Don't do it. That's my Wednesday reminder to you all. We had a question come in from one of our listeners. I'll bring this up on the screen now. This comes from Howdy from State on Twitter. What effect is the coaching search / Keats' departure having on our players / recruits? What is the team looking like now? And what does #Wade to State have to work with moving forward? So I think I've said this a couple times in our comments before, but anytime you get into a coaching search and whether the guy is fired or retires or decides to move on for whatever reason it is, I think it's a normal practice to not really expect any of that current roster that can return to return. I'm talking guys that still have eligibility or, a grad year, whatever it may be. I don't think it's a good idea to get too attached to really anyone moving forward. And when you're looking at NC State's roster from this year, you had 7 seniors. Put an asterisk by Marcus Hill because technically he does have another year of eligibility to use. He also said that he was planning on returning to NC State to use it. So I think that'll be an interesting storyline here in the next couple weeks. But when you're looking at Ben Middlebrooks, he's moving on. Jaden Taylor, moving on. Dontrez Styles, moving on. Breon Pass, moving on. Michael O'Connell, moving on. Brandon Huntley Hatfield, moving on. What say you, Kenton?
In terms of the entire roster and what it'll look like, I want to take everybody back to a moment from a coach from a small, unheralded, historically black college and university in Jackson State, who was bumped up from there to the Power 4 in football. He said something along the lines of, "I'm bringing my luggage, and it's Louis." Here's the thing. I think all the players that can play will stay. I think all the players that Will Wade has faith in is like, hey, I think that you could do great things here. Will stay. Everybody, how of all the coaches that have been gotten out of the coaching searches that have happened this year, is there a single coach that was a hotter or bigger name than Will Wade? And that's not even taking off our Wolfpack glasses right now. Is there a single name that was hotter, linked to more jobs, said to be more sought after?
As of right now, definitely not.
So why would you not want to play for that guy if you're a player? To me, it'll be much more of a situation where it's like, hey, we got, 13 or 15 scholarships? We got to work this thing out how we work it out, okay? And some guys, with all due respect, Keats might have been a little too guard heavy. Sorry. We need some big bodies. Can't help you. That may be what's coming down the pipeline here. And, there may be some players who don't even want to have to deal with being the old guy's guy or the new guy's guy. There may be some players that don't want to deal with that, and that's fine. But honestly, the young guys, I would like to retain them. I would like to retain the likes of a Paul McNeil Jr., of a Trey Parker. I would like to retain those guys, but even then, sometimes guys are like, you know what? I don't feel like dealing with the drama of new guys, players versus old guys, players, and who fits what system. So, I'm expecting a lot of roster turnover, but that's to be expected. Roster turnover is inevitable in general, but especially when you're coming off a bad season. and then stack the multiplier on top of that of I'm coming off a terrible season and getting a new coach, of course there's going to be some new kind of life and blood bought into the program here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much standard practice to expect almost like, I mean, I might even go as far to say like a 90% new roster. We'll have to see what the freshmen do here in the coming weeks. I've heard some rumors. We'll see where those things go. Obviously, with the transfer portal opening for business on Monday, the 24th, we'll keep our ears to the ground in that direction. But you have your 7 seniors. Marcus still has an asterisk because he can return. But when you're looking at freshmen here, we're talking about Paul McNeil, talking about Trey Parker, and we're talking about Bryce Hurd. Dennis Parker Jr. is a sophomore, so he can have more time at NC State if he chooses to, and the new coach also decides to keep him here in the mix. I would have to imagine that KJ Keats is going to move on. Probably the same for Jordan Snell. We'll see. But everyone else, I would imagine, is more than likely not going to return to NC State. And I do think that will include Marcus Hill. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see where that goes. So on the question of what is the new coach going to have to work with, to Kenton's point, if it is Will Wade, and like we've been telling you, we do anticipate that it will be, he's a hot name on the market. And I've also heard some rumblings that he already has some players probably scattered around the country that are going to want to play for him when he reaches a P4 level. They already have it in their mind that if Coach Wade is going to a big spot, I want to follow him there. We'll see what that means. I know that Kadir Copeland, who was previously of Syracuse, is now playing under Wade at McNeese State. That would be a very easy connection to make in my mind. He previously played in the ACC, very familiar with NC State. He played in Raleigh, I think at least once. So Copeland certainly knows the landscape. He knows the ACC, and he already knows the head coach that's more than likely going to be NC State. That would be a very easy connection to make. I won't be surprised if Kadir Copeland follows potentially Will Wade up here to Raleigh. Something else that we should mention here, we spoke about it last week. Coach Wade is still technically under that show cause, and that means that he cannot go out and do any recruiting until the conclusion of the month of June. However, based on what I just told you, though, I don't think that's going to matter. I think when you are the hot name on the market and you're going to NC State and you're watching their fan base buy into the program, and you saw how they rallied around this same program against all odds last year, and you went to a national stage, you had DJ Burns, you had the hottest name in March Madness last year. That already makes NC State an attractive landing spot, regardless of anything else that Coach Wade potentially has going on. So I don't even think that's going to matter, despite the fact that he can't technically do any workings in the portal or high school recruiting until after the month of June. His name is kind of already doing the recruiting by itself. And I'd imagine any other assistant coaches will have to assume positions anyway. Even though he's not doing the recruiting, still kind of is, because like his people, you follow what I'm saying here. His people are still doing it anyway.
He's a rule-following guy, Will Wade. He's learned his lesson. He's sticking closely to the rules here. But what we will say is this. Sometimes your name precedes you. Sometimes your name enters a room long before you even have to. Sometimes a player looks up, and again, in a hotbed of talent, like North Carolina, which is known as what, Grayson? The what state?
The hoop state.
The hoop state. I'm sure that there's going to be guys looking up, I do want to go home, but that guy at Carolina's looking a little shaky. I do want to go home, but you know, that Shire guy, he ain't been able to win the big one. He ain't been able to win the big game. Now, that Wade character, they may not have the biggest, most national brand of all the Triangle teams, but I'll tell you what, that Wade character's won some ball games and put some guys in the league. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, regardless of what the show cause is, regardless of what penalties are still being levied against Will Wade, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Because again, if you tell me, hey, Ken, you get Will Wade with a 3-year show cause or Kevin Keats free and clear, or not even Kevin Keats, just really 90% of other coaches in America free and clear, give me Will Wade. Give me Will Wade under that show cause, and his assistants will make it happen.
That's a circumstance where the juice is worth the squeeze. We'll sit here and wait until the end of June. So be it. His name will precede him, and we'll do the recruiting ultimately for him. And I get excited when I think about the opportunity that Will Wade has here. Think about all the players over the last, decade to 2 decades that are from Raleigh, big name players that kind of considered NC State maybe a little bit, but then went somewhere else. I'm talking the Devontae Grahams, right down the road in Raleigh, but went to Kansas. The John Walls from Raleigh went to Kentucky. Think about all these players. Bam Adebayo. Think about all these players that were so close but chose to go elsewhere. And name like Will Wade, you might start converting some of those. You might actually get the Rob Dillinghams to be committed and stay committed and show up to campus. That's what Will Wade brings to the table. If NC State wants a shark, they might be getting a great white. And when you get a great white in a down ACC, fish food. We're chumming the waters if you're picking up what I'm putting down here. So full transparency, I wouldn't really think about the roster quite yet because it's going to look entirely different in probably a month to 2 months' time. The portal does open on Monday, and if it is Will Wade, and let's say hypothetically McNeese loses on Thursday and you get him to Raleigh over the weekend, his staff can hit the ground running, whoever it is. I also think this is a perfect opportunity to enter a GM into the equation because if Will Wade can't do the recruiting, have the GM do it. That is the perfect reason to go ahead and get ahead of the 8 ball and hire a GM to handle the player acquisition part. Obviously, several more conversations to have on this type, just putting our toe in the water. If it is Will Wade, we'll see. But yeah, don't get too attached to any of the players. Certainly hate to see some of them go. Trey Parker's a great talent. Paul McNeil's a great talent. Wish we could see a lot more of them. But my advice to Wolfpack Nation, just let it be for right now. We'll see where this thing goes. Exciting times are ahead. We'll leave it there. Coming up next, we're getting into some spring football talk. Dave Dorn closed all the spring practices and closed the spring football game to the media, but Coach Prime might be shaking up the way this thing is looked at. More on this on a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Wednesday sponsor is Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more with experts ready to help take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them to the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job on Upwork is both free and simple, and within a day, you can expect multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com, Upwork.com, Upwork.com. Connect with top talent and grow your business today. Our second Wednesday sponsor is Fabric. Life moves fast, and especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You could even be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, there's no health exam required. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 per day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Fabric also offers free digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan for your children's future. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric today to help protect their families. Apply in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Go get your term life insurance at Fabric today. Middle portion of our Wednesday show, transitioning into some NC State football talk. Now, a couple weeks ago, Dave Dorn announced that the spring practices would all be closed to the media, and the spring football game would also be non-publicly attended, closed to the media, not televised. I want to bring this up because I saw some very interesting comments made by Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, head coach of Colorado Buffaloes. He said that he would like his program to have a publicly attended TV scrimmage game. And to that, head coach of Syracuse, Fran Brown, said, "We'll come to Boulder for 3 days and make this happen." Kenton, I'll start here. What are your thoughts on that? And then we'll talk about potential NC State tie-ons in just a second.
It's pushing towards professionalization, which is where we're already headed, right? We're pushing towards a moment where in the NFL, how are preseason games conducted, right? The NFL says, okay, we're going to pick 3 teams that are not on your schedule during the regular season, and we're going to make sure that you two go to each other. Somebody goes to somebody else, wherever the game is going to be played at. You go to that team's facility. You practice with them in tandem for a few days, and then you have a preseason game. And I figure these spring games are going to work in a similar way in the future. I mean, it's illegal right now, but how much teeth do the NCAA really have to stop this in the future?
Falling out of their head.
Exactly. And so with that in mind, I think that this is a way to give something back to the fans. And I really can't think of a negative here. I really can't think of a drawback to potentially doing spring practice in this way, because, I mean, again, this is what you want to see. You want to see guys competing. You want to see guys going after guys who are not wearing the same jersey as them anymore. You want to see quality football being played. And even beyond that, it gives guys like you and me something to actually base things off of when we're going into these preseason rankings, right? We're no longer just having to be completely blind and say, all right, here's what we think it'll be. No. We have some type of reference for, well, hey, you remember how that joint practice with Louisville and Texas Tech? Man, Louisville sure did whoop the wheels off them boys. I think that they're a little bit better than we thought they were. Hey, you remember that joint practice between NC State and Rutgers? We thought Rutgers was going to be physical, but NC State dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides in the spring game. So, I think that it gives us – I really can't see a downside about this. Some people are saying, well, it could lead to more poaching and all that good stuff. But I'm just like, to that end, have you built the relationship properly if your player can be poached because he put up a touchdown or two in a spring game?
Yeah, what I said the first time I'll repeat now. Spring games are not about the poaching, because if a player's going to get poached, he's going to get poached anyway. It doesn't matter if it's in the spring game, spring practice, over the summer, whatever. If they're going to get poached, it's going to happen because the team was watching them play in the fall and they know what kind of player they potentially be getting. So the poaching is not the aspect of this. I really think the only con would be, potentially massive injuries happening. You're playing against another team, and if it's not as, light as a spring game would be, and they are modified, they're not like an actual game typically, and if you're playing a scrimmage against another team, perhaps it'd be a little bit more intense and more injuries could happen. I could see that being a massive fallout. Like, for example, I don't even want to put this into the universe, but let's say a very important player for NC State were to get hurt in the spring game. That derails your entire season before the season even has a chance to come around the corner. So I could definitely see that being a hesitation. But I do want to reiterate what Kenton was saying here. There's far more pros than there are cons. And when you're looking at this landscape of NIL and teams really trying to conjure up as much funding and fundraising as they can, what better opportunity than to have essentially a bonus football game in the spring? Everyone's going to want to attend this because we're clamoring as is to get into Carter Finley and see as many games as we can. This is good for viewership as well. You talk about the rev share coming down the line, how important the viewership is going to be. Why not give another game to watch? I think it makes so much sense. Not exactly a surprise that Deion Sanders is the one leading the charge and getting ahead of the curve because he's trying to transcend college football anyway. I think this is a great idea. And if NC State, well, we know NC State is more than likely not going to get into this, already announced that they're not televising anything, but do you think this would be a good idea for NC State specifically in the future?
NC State's not getting into it now. With all due respect, when you get to that point where people are getting left behind because they're not having the financial backing or they're not having the viewership, and you could bridge that gap potentially with saying, you know what, we could make a killing right now because it's spring, and with all due respect, the tournament isn't going on yet. Nothing's really going on in the sports world. Let's throw some football on there. Let's go out to Arizona for a few days. And let's go see what those Wildcats are talking about. Let's go out to Little Manhattan for a few days, and let's see what those Wildcats of Kansas State are talking about. That is definitely going to be a thing that will help you in that viewership because, again, it's going to give you a bump compared to everybody else. I would urge NC State to not be so, we need to focus and we need to have everything so tight that you fall behind on things that could put you way ahead of the game. This is one of those moments where if you have the opportunity to be at the front of the curve, get your tail to the front of that line immediately. Immediately. Grayson's laughing because he knows that tail wasn't the word I wanted to use there.
Get your tail.
Get your behind to the front of that line, okay? And so this is a moment where I would say, regardless of what NC State wants to do in terms of, we want to keep it quiet, we want to keep everything close to the vest, don't play it close to the vest when you are missing out on the opportunity for millions. How much do you think a spring game would be worth if you go play one of the biggest brands in football? If Oregon were to say, hey, NC State, we'd love to have you out for Alton. We'd love to have a home-and-home situation where we come down to Raleigh, y'all come up to Alton, boom, 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 we work it out. Do you know what type of fool you would have to be? And even if it's not a brand as big as an Oregon, even if it's a lesser-known brand, even if it's an Oregon State, a Washington State, a Minnesota, a Nebraska, a Wisconsin, go play that football or have them come to us, play those spring games, get some good tape on in terms of, oh, this is how this player looks when it's live bullets flying, for lack of a better term there, and keep it pushing.
On the point about the revenue, you think we're not going to sell out Carter Finley even for a game that doesn't technically matter? No, absolutely. Everyone's going to come see this game, especially if it's a name like Oregon, because perhaps a name like Oregon would be, warmed up to the idea of playing a game that doesn't matter against a team like NC State. Maybe not so much when the actual season comes into play because you have conference standings and the whole 9 yards, but with less stakes, I think you can get really creative in this way and generate additional revenue. It makes all the sense in the world. Last point, and I meant to bring this up a couple minutes ago, but you were saying that you get to watch more meaningful things when you're playing against another team. Obviously, Kenton is a former player. Does it not feel differently when you're playing against guys with a different uniform than yours?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It always feels different. Even in high school when you did the little jamborees or little scrimmages and whatnot, it felt different to go up against guys that aren't your guys. Because, again, the guys that are your guys, regardless of how good you are, how bad they are, regardless of how bad you are, how good they are, people know and learn tendencies. These are still Division I athletes, and eventually you learn each other's tendencies. You learn, oh, okay, when he leans this way, he's doing this. When he looks that way, he's doing that. And you kind of go from there, as opposed to meeting guys who are brand new that even in practicing with them for a few days, you cannot figure out a guy in the same way as if spring ball, which is 3 weeks or so, where you're learning these guys over long periods of time, seeing what they do, going in, watching the tape on the same guy every single day. You're when you play somebody different, it's absolutely going to be different.
I think last point here on the topic of player evaluation, which was a hot topic around NC State because you went 6-6 last year, kind of fell flat on your face when you vaulted up all these transfers that didn't quite all pan out. I think when you're looking at the talent evaluation, what better opportunity to get real snaps against another team where guys are going to feel different, they're going to act different, they're going to play different. That's when you really might figure out what you have before you get to late August. You might see, to Kenton's point, those tendencies that the coaching staff can better understand the player that they have, the player they can develop, and the player that they can be by the time the actual season rolls around. So, yeah, in summary, I think there is far more benefit to doing something like this than there are cons. I guess another con would be additional tape on your team, but what's the difference between 13 games on film or 14 games on film? I don't think it's that drastic that it's a big deal. So
I also imagine in terms of the tape aspect, and sorry to cut you off there, but in terms of the tape aspect, I imagine that it's although you are playing a different team, it's still going to be very basic stuff. You're still going to run, hey, we're going to run inside zone, we're going to run outside zone. We may run a little bit of the quarterback's not live, so we're not even going to run any read option or anything like that, or quarterback power or quarterback draw. All quarterback runs are out. We're not going to run any elaborate trick plays. We're just going to run very basic base stuff to say, hey, this is, we're not looking for, who can out scheme who in this moment. Right now, we're looking to get some good work to see who's got good hand placement, to see who's cutting their routes off at the proper depth, who's properly understanding zone versus man, who's properly understanding how to get in and out of breaks, who's running the routes for the receivers, even when it is a basic route, and kind of going from there. So I think that that's much more of what we're going to see than it is like, this is full-on game time. I'm so competitive. I want to beat you. I'm going to empty the whole clip of our playbook in order to show the world that we can beat you, which is a little bit counterproductive.
Yeah, like NC State last year, struggling to run the most basic of run formations out of the gate. Would you rather know that in late August, or would you rather know that in April? I know my answer. Right. I want to know what I got in April so we can build all summer long and then already be 50 yards down the road when it comes to August. So, yeah, I think this is a great idea. Obviously, NC State's probably not going to do it this year. but I do hope that they consider this in years moving forward. And I also wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a bigger deal for teams across the country buying into this type of thing. I guess, pun intended. Coming up next, we're going to get into a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our third Wednesday sponsor is Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and go, where the heck did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy sometimes to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes to play. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center that you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. You can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. When you start using Monarch Money, you realize how much you're spending on food delivery, and you can budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan some long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, monarch like the butterfly, and then money like the money. And use code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for half off your first year, only on Monarch Money. Last couple minutes here of our Wednesday show. Now time for a whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something. 3 topics. We'll tell you exactly where we stand on them. First one here, in relation to the ongoing coaching search, I see that Indiana has made their hire. It is Darian DeVries, former coach of West Virginia. Perhaps some dominoes. You look at Iowa, I've seen interest to Ben McCollum, who's currently the head coach of Drake. And I've seen zero buzz from Texas or Ole Miss or anyone else that could be potentially interested in Frank William Wade. Kenton, whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. This thing is, in the words of one Stephen Morris of the West Side of Detroit, signed, still delivered. I'm yours, is what it's sounding like these days.
In the words of Young Jock, it's going down. Will Wade's going to be our guy. And I hope and pray that we know this publicly on Friday. Again, I shouldn't have to say this any more times than I already have. Root for Clemson on Thursday. I'm not singing that song. Sorry. But we need Clemson to beat McNeese. No Final Four runs, no Elite Eight runs, no March Magic. No, I love their manager, Amir Khan, the guy with the big boombox, has all the aura you could possibly imagine. I hope he comes to Raleigh too. I don't want to see them play more than one game in March Madness. So it's not nothing that you're not seeing anyone else vying for Will Wade's services. I think that tells you exactly what you think I'm saying here. So it's definitely a whole lot of something. Second one, and actually third one, both NC State baseball related. NC State baseball has won the last 12 of 13 games after a shaky start, and they've won their opening ACC series. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. The same way I said that the opening of the season was too small of a sample size, even if you believe that the competition wasn't the best or whatever the case may be, we still shook off our mid-season woes or the Wednesday woes that we had for the longest, losing to whoever. I mean, we could have played Meredith's softball team and we would have lost if it was a midweek last year. No, shout out to the Avenging Angels. We love Meredith. But in all seriousness, you didn't want to do that, right? That's not something that you wanted to see. And it's not something that you saw this year. This is a team that is starting off with the right confidence, taking every game seriously, and it's working out. Yes, the start was very shaky, yes. But they're seeming to find some very steady ground at this point. Whole lot of something.
It's definitely a whole lot of something, and there's really no time here for I told you so's. But for anyone that was crashing out in the middle of February, welcome back. I told you, NC State baseball is never defined by a shaky February. I also understand they are nowhere near getting into the meat and potatoes of their schedule, let alone the ACC schedule. Much, much, much tougher competition to come. But after you go 3-5 out of the gate and you lose against your P4, P5 opponents, you wanted to see them right the ship. And winning 12 of 13, I mean, it's almost perfect in doing exactly that. I would love what I saw this past weekend, the ACC series opener against Virginia Tech. You took care of business in games 1 and 2. Game 3 kind of got away from you. But after you win the series, that's really the most important part of that equation. So I'm loving what I'm seeing right now. The pitching has been phenomenal. I'm going to talk about Rom-Com Dom here in just 1 second. But The starting pitching between Fritton, Marone, Heath Andrews has impressed me in a massive fashion. If the bullpen can continue to kind of work through some of the kinks, they're going to be a weapon as the season rolls on. So 12 of the last 13 trending in the right direction. Got to hope and pray that we're winning each and every one of these weekend series because that's going to put you in a great spot. And so last one here, Rom-Com Dom for the second time in I think 2 or 3 weeks here, recognized by 64 Analytics as one of the top 4 starting pitchers of the week. This past week against Virginia Tech, 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 8 Ks, dominant, whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. We knew that it was just a little sophomore slump that Don Fritton was going through. Again, ladies and gentlemen, do y'all not remember how he got his nickname? Came into a situation where bases were loaded. Now, I want you to think about that. A head coach as experienced as Elliot David looked at a freshman with bases loaded and said, hey, kid, get us out of this jam. How many runs did he allow when he came in? 0.
None.
Okay. So we knew Elliot has confidence in him for a reason. Coach David has confidence in him for a reason. We saw that and said, okay, this young man, there's something there, and he showed it all throughout his freshman year. So he went through, ups and downs, a little bit of a slump. He's back. He's back. The guy that we knew that, hey, you can't write it up better than this in Hollywood is back, and he's balling. We love how you're slinging that pill, Dom. Keep it up, brother. Whole lot of something.
The competition level is important, but it's not exactly a coincidence that in his 4 wins, they've had 2 or less walks. That's my biggest point on Dom. It has been consistently this year, last year. If he can keep that walk rate down, he can be a dominant pitcher. And he is showing you that he can still be Rom-Com Dom of freshman year. He's been on a tear recently. He had back-to-back games of double-digit strikeouts against Canisius and Wright State, followed it up with the ACC series opening win this past Friday against Virginia Tech. He's rolling right now, and I am so happy that a guy like Dom can right the ship because this is a bag year for him. It's his junior season, very crucial for his MLB draft prospects, and he is currently 4-1 with a 1.26 ERA. That's getting the job done. That's exactly what you want. Yes, that's what you want out of your Friday night starter. So hopefully more of this to come from Rom-Com Dom. He's on the right track. Welcome back, brother. This is exactly what we expected to see out of you this season. So he is delivering on exactly who we thought that he could be. That'll do it for us here on Wednesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Should be an interesting couple of days here for NC State. Hopefully an announcement or 2 to come in about a week's time. You know what I'm saying. Be sure
Grayson
to get all those comments.
Grace and I will be on standby for an emergency podcast if need be. We've already put in our PTO request. We will be standing, literally sitting right by our podcasting equipment. Is it go time? So don't worry, Wolfpack Nation. We're here for you. If nobody else is here for you, we're here for you.
You know it. I know it. Hashtag Wade to State. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Thursday for more. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.